Welcome to Second Listen Saturday on the Parenting Roundabout podcast, where we share some fun moments from a past episode for your weekend listening pleasure. Look for new episodes every Monday through Friday. A recurring feature here on the podcast, do-it-yourself therapy. What is our therapeutic issue of the day? Let's all lay down on a couch, get a box of tissues next to us, and explore this. Nicole, what's going on besides baking anxiety?
Oh, yes. Well, my kids. I think that's kind of the big thing is that
Say no more.
it's not so much my issues and my anxieties, it's their stuff that I've now made mine. So that's the tough part.
Yes. That is so bad to do, and yet it is so impossible not to do. I hated it when my mother did it. I cannot stop myself from doing it now. Why is that?
And so as you know, as I've talked about it in the past, I have a 16-year-old daughter who is going through a lot of stuff right now. And so I just find that, my whole day is consumed with either, thinking about her or texting her or getting text messages from her. Like right now, as I'm talking, I just got 4 text messages with screenshots of a conversation that she had. So now my mind is like, trying to, I've got all those tabs open, right? Like, okay, I gotta deal with that. I gotta deal with that. I gotta deal with that. So, it's I don't know how to deal with it. And it's so hard to not make her stuff mine.
Yes.
And, how do you handle that? And thankfully right now, my son, let's knock on wood. Things are pretty quiet for him, but I mean, how do people have 4 or 5 kids and then not have to deal with it? How do they manage this stuff, right?
I don't know. Only one can have a crisis at a time, I guess.
I know. So so my question is, I guess, how do you guys deal with your kids' issues or do you not deal with them? You just bury your head and hope it goes away.
I deal with them badly and always have. And I'm a second generation, at least, of handling them badly. And I don't know. I mean, certainly when my kids were younger, I just agonized over every little slight and, problem and thing that they did wrong, thing that people did wrong to them. I was just, felt like I had to be the manager of all that. And if something was going wrong, it was my job to fix it. And I'd like to say that now that my kids are in their 20s, I don't feel that way. But I just today had a conversation with my daughter about this because she has something difficult. She's minor league difficult, but something that's bothering her. And she grumbles about it. And I try to give her wise advice. And as we've said before, kids don't want to hear wise advice. 20-somethings especially don't want to hear wise advice.
Yeah.
But I can't just not put myself into it. It's like, I was trying to explain to her, if your kid is hurting, you want to make them stop hurting, no matter what age they are. Yeah. And I only have one piece of advice to give you and you don't like it. So we finally decided, and I think this is the metaphor I'm going to carry forward in my life, that it's kind of like when the dog barks. The dog sees something very, very important that she thinks should be brought to everybody's attention and that people should act on immediately. And the rest of us do not care. But we still love the dog, and we tell the dog to shut up, but we understand that the dog's going to do what dog's going to do. So I told her, I'm just going to bark, just pat me on the head.
And you can just ignore
Give me some peanut butter and go about your life. Just because I can't pull myself out of her issues, and yet she's not interested in my input.
So how did that go over? Did she feel like that was something she could do?
She smiled and patted me on the head and scratched me under my neck.
There you go. Sounds like you guys figured it out.
Yeah, but it's, it's hard.
It is.
Especially...
And now you have to preface every piece of advice you give her with, "Arf!"
Exactly. I intend to do that, actually. Just going to bark at you for a minute, sweetie. But it's like, if you don't want me to get involved, then don't involve me. It's like, like Nicole, I don't know if she wants your advice or not, but when she sends you texts, what are you going to do? You're going to give her advice, and then she's not going to like the advice, and then you're laying in a dark room with a cloth over your head, and she's complaining that my mom won't. Well, I don't know. Does she want your input? Does
she wants it. That's
your issues to be her issues?
Well, she wants the advice, and she wants to share, and I'm grateful that we have a relationship where she feels like she can share. Sometimes it's oversharing. Sometimes I'm like, it's okay, hon.
Mommy doesn't need to know that.
Don't need to know that. But at the same time, when she wants it, it's like, not now, but right now. Like,
yeah.
It's tough because I want her to be able to be open.
Yeah.
But I just end up getting dragged in, and
yeah,
it becomes my issues. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just this weird blurry line.
Does she like the way you handle things? Does she prefer the way you handle her issues to the way she would do it? Or
I think I'm more...
does she spurn your...
Yeah, I don't know. I think, like, so far, she kind of has trusted. I mean, I've tried not to get, because you still want to maintain that boundary, right, of, like, mother-daughter type thing.
Right.
So I've tried not to get too involved. But when there's, like, a crisis, definitely, yeah, like, she wants the advice, she wants the help, so... But it's...
And then when you give her advice and she takes it, do you then second guess yourself? What if that wasn't the right thing for her to do? If not, you are much healthier than me. So I'm unhappy if she doesn't take my advice, and I'm unhappy if she does.
Yeah, that's tough. Sometimes I'll be like, oh, okay, if she doesn't take it. But for the most part, and for the most part too, it's just like she's just venting, right?
Yeah.
So I'm listening and thinking, and I'm probably worrying about it far more than what she is. Because, right, like when you're a 16-year-old girl, there's something that happens every 2 minutes, right? Whereas I'm at home doing my work, not much is going on. So I'm thinking about that one thing she told me at 8:55 this morning.
Yeah.
So, Catherine, you have a daughter too. What's your take on all this?
Yeah, I mean, she's fairly self-sufficient. I mean, she, like you say, she wants to vent sometimes. She doesn't always want advice. And the good thing is, she will tell me things. Like, recently, there was this whole thing with a boy where, they were talking or hanging out or whatever the word is, right?
Talking.
Yeah, they were talking. And then they weren't, because she was like, no, I'm done with you. So then they weren't, and then he was a little put out, and he posted something on Instagram that was like, whatever. He posted something that was directed at her. It wasn't mean. It was just like
Was it shady?
It was just like a see ya kind of thing. Like, it wasn't, it was just him expressing his feelings. But it wasn't like bullying or it wasn't anything bad. And he blocked her before she would have seen it. But she's like, of course I have means. I saw it. So then she posted something back. And when she told me that, I was like, oh, you didn't. What did you do that for? Like, don't stir up drama. Like, you just got to ignore that stuff. Well, I went off on this whole thing. Like, why did you do that? Don't do that. That's terrible. Don't do that. And she's like, no, I posted it. And then he was like, I got to give you props for that. That was good. And then we became friends again.
Oh, no, man.
I was like, oh, okay, well, never mind. You might as well not tell me anything anymore, because I got that one done.
And you still got all that adrenaline going.
Yeah, like,
and nothing to do with it.
You posted something? Are you kidding? So.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
hard.
That's kind of where we've been at, too. It's like trying to not... rile her up to become more dramatic, and, trying to help her keep it toned down, and, not, encourage her to not let it bother her, but at the same time stand up for herself. And it's just like this whole, because this isn't my game, this isn't what it was like when I was 16.
Right.
So.
And when it's like a friend issue, I think we've talked about this before. Like, I have a hard time with both of my kids when they have a complaint about a friend. I'm usually like, oh, you got a lot more. Like, just ignore that particular one, which is terrible advice and really not helpful. So,
yeah, it's hard it's hard not to make their issues your issues,
right?
And then when they go off in a different direction, and you still have the issue,
right? You're kind of like
know what
left
to do with
holding
that.
the bag.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
I'm still obsessing about this. What do you mean you've moved on? What do I do with this now?
My daughter will come home at 3:00 in the afternoon and I'll be like, so what did you do about that thing from this morning? And she says, huh? What are you talking about?
Doesn't even remember. Yeah.
And then I'm like so crushed. I'm like, oh my God, I just spent my whole day worrying about it. I really need to get a life. Like, seriously. I'm going to need to work outside of the home or something.
Yeah. Oh, it's definitely harder when you're working at home and you're looking for things to procrastinate because...
Yeah. Or because you have your phone beside you, right? So
that's right.
Like these constant messages.
You need something that but you can't block it because it could be something important.
Exactly.
Right. So you got to pay attention to each little missive.
Yeah, exactly. So
well, and if you were in a classroom or someplace where you couldn't reply,
yes,
then you'd feel awful too.
Yes.
And, and then
you'd still be
stop
stewing about it.
sending you stuff, and then you'd feel disconnected. Like it's
totally. I mean, that's kind of the double-edged sword, right? Is that, I want her to be able to be open and talk and chat and tell us things, but at the same time, it can get so consuming. And
yes.
I feel like I'm just reliving my earlier years, but yeah, and I don't want to shut it down.
No.
Because then she gets advice from her friends, and Lord knows what that's like.
Right. Yeah. I don't know, because it's like, I feel like probably what I should be doing is just listening and nodding and not doing any input. Because oftentimes, even when they were younger, oftentimes my input was just wrong because I'm not there. I'm not a kid and I'm not getting all the subtext that's going on. So I give bad advice so I should just shut up and listen. But at some point, you feel like you have to have some input, don't you? If you think your kid is going to do something that's going to be bad or embarrassing, you have to say something. But, what do you know? Maybe it's fine. I bump up against that wall all the time. It's very hard to just sit there. And it seems like they want something, but maybe they really don't.
Now, here's a question. What about your sons? Are they as forthcoming, or do you take on their stuff? Do they share their stuff with you? Like what?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about this today for some reason. Like my son will have little things that he obsesses over and, is angry about literally 2 years ago. And he still will bring up, like, that one time, remember that? I'm like, yep, I remember, because you have never let it go. So, but he's 12 and he'll tell us things, and sometimes it's because he wants advice, and sometimes because it's usually just because he wants to vent and complain about somebody. So I usually just try to do the smile and nod on that one.
Yeah. It's really difficult with my son because of his disability. He doesn't communicate in really straightforward ways. So he may be trying to tell me stuff, but I don't get it. I mean, like there was a time when he would come home from school and say he had a stomach ache, and I would say, well, do you want something for it? And he'd say, no, that's okay. And then, a month later, his stomach exploded. He had an ruptured ulcer and went to the hospital. Right. It's like, how could I not have known this was a problem? But he was just like, oh, no, it's fine. So, I try to stay on top of things. If he's doing something that I think is a little squirrely, I try to, ask him about it, but he doesn't respond in a straightforward way. The most straightforward thing he ever says to me is stop worrying. It's like, well, that's not an option.
Right.
Like, there's no off button on that. I'm always going to worry. If you gave me information, I might be able to worry more effectively, but no, that does not happen. Right. So I wish I could do it more with him. I wish I could obsess and be incapacitated by worrying more with him, but I just never really
kids
know.
Instead of just one.
Exactly. Because stuff could be happening, and there's been times when stuff, I hear later that stuff was happening that was bad, that he never said anything about. Or he said things, but not in a way that you would ever realize that's what he was talking about until later.
Yeah.
Problems with a aide at school, and If I had interpreted things differently, maybe, but it's really, really hard. So that's, having a kid who shares too much is hard, but having a kid who doesn't share enough is hard too.
Right.
So I just have to guess and make up all sorts of problem scenarios and then make decisions based on that are probably wrong.
Make all sorts of assumptions.
So I guess his issues are my issues, but just in a different way.
Issues that you're thinking he has, or
5 times the issues, because I have to think of every possibility.
Well,
but I don't know if it's a guy thing or if it's just the way he communicates or what. Sometimes we have a good friend who's close with him and spends a lot of time with him. And when he and his wife come over to visit, and he and Andy play cards. And sometimes my son will say things to him, and then he'll tell me. So I don't know why that is, but so sometimes that works, but not always. And, and then I have to think, well, what lens do I have to look at this through? Or is this straightforward?
I went to school with a girl, and she's like a year older than me.
Uh-huh.
And she ended up having 17 kids.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, I kid you not.
That's one way to avoid obsessing.
Does she have a TV show?
She doesn't have a TV show. No, she's not the family with the TV show. But she has 17 kids. And I mean, maybe I should have just done that because I've been so busy. I wouldn't have not had time to even, think about or worry about my kids' little day in and day out issues.
You just assign those things for siblings, okay?
That's
child
right.
1, you worry about the problems of child 2. Child 2, you obsess about the problems of child 3.
Exactly, right? Go see your brother. Go see your sister.
These are your chores. We're divvying up the worry.
Oh, Lord. It really is scary.
But
I think having a smaller family sometimes can be just as intense, if not more, because it's like the problems are magnified.
yeah.
Anyway. So as I wrap up this conversation with you and my daughter's text, replying to my daughter's text message, I'm issue free